All right, let's move on to Paul Kelly. Editor-at-Large Paul Kelly is joining me now from Sydney. Paul, it's interesting, the relationship is bigger than any individual between Australia and the United States. So it's not so much the presidency I'm interested in picking your brains about tonight. I'm interested in who you think might win. You've got a lot of experience here. But the trend here, the Democrats losing their old blue-collar base, very much like the Labor Party in pockets of Australia. The new Republican Party appealing more to the poor, the black, Hispanic, middle America type, the low-income voter, if I can say that. The elites, the jeering elites, yet again looking like the electorate has ignored them. And pollsters absolutely out of the game. Even if Biden gets over the line, pollsters are a long, long way away from what they told us was the likely result. This is extraordinary stuff.
Oh, it's an amazing election, Peter, and it's an amazing election result. Donald Trump is very close to a miracle win. He's not there yet. We can't call it. Both candidates clearly think that they're in a winning position, but Trump is in front, Biden is behind. The polls, the pundits, and the established institutions have got it wrong. If Trump wins, this will be the biggest comeback, the biggest resurgence in American presidential history, I believe. And I would argue this election will probably be more important in 2020 than his initial win in 2016, because he will have, if you like, claimed a mandate for the Trumpian revolution. Even if Trump doesn't win, having lost by such a narrow margin means that the transformation in the Republican Party and American politics over which Trump has presided will remain, and the Trump heartland will remain in the field campaigning. Now, to go to your question, I think that, clearly America is a different country to Australia, but there are some lessons to draw from America. The first one, I think, is economic policy. This, I think, reflected Trump's campaign on the economy and the priority people attach to economic policy in this time. Secondly, the way he campaigned on behalf of voiceless Americans against the established institutions and the progressive culture, the dominant progressive culture. So this is another fundamental point. And thirdly, and paradoxically in a sense, I think he did much better on the virus than many people thought. Biden wanted to win on the virus, to make the election a referendum on the virus. Now, that didn't work. And we'll have to research exactly what happened, but there seems to be the impression here that Trump's personal resistance to the virus was more effective than Biden's submission to the virus in his basement. Beyond that...
Let me just jump in there, Paul. That's a very good point, because I think two things work for the president. One, America doesn't have a JobKeeper, job seeker payment. So people in and around this COVID period, even if there are lockdowns, they still have to put food on the table in a way most Australians never, ever come to grips with in terms of our very strong safety net. So it's a huge motivator for Americans that the economy stays open, because they simply don't have any other alternative but to work. But also Trump showed when he got coronavirus that it wasn't as bad as many people should be led to fear. If they are, and his case is very different, obviously he had good medical care, but even if you are an older person, there's every chance you'll get through it, and he got through it so well. So I think they were two illustrations that I think diminished Biden's campaign on COVID.
I think that's right, and I think the pandemic experience and the way it plays out politically is different between Australia and the United States for a number of reasons. One, of course, is the JobKeeper program that you mentioned. I think the other is there's more support in Australia for a hard health line against the virus. Whereas I think quite a lot of middle America, quite a lot of the Trumpian base were very suspicious about a hard line against the virus and put more of a priority on keeping the economy alive. The other general point I'd like to make, just to take up what you said at the start, Peter, is that there is a strong element here of the conservative side, represented by Trump, or the populist conservative side, being the party of the disenfranchised, being the party of low-income earners, the people who are powerless, the people who don't have a voice. And this is combined, of course, with what we know about the centre-left these days, and the centre-left is divided between its traditional base and the fact that its expanding support these days is among the urban elites, the progressives, who are much better off. So that is a dilemma for the centre-left. I think one of the interesting things will be how Australian politics absorbs this lesson from the United States, recognising we are two different countries, but nonetheless there will be a lot of consequences, I think, for Australia.